Good morning, ladies and gents. I actually don't have my Twitch dashboard open, so I can't actually see you guys chatting. Give me a sec to get that set up. Hey, there it is. Oh my god, notices from Twitch everywhere. Yeah, I know TwitchCon kicks up. No, I don't particularly care. Thank you, Twitch. So, as the title says, today's task is going to be some inventory work, and as you can see, I've got actually Photoshop open because I've been playing with getting some UI swapped over. Right now, my UI is little more than Unity's default stuff, and it's not that good looking, honestly. I'd like to get that cleaned up and fixed up. And I'm just kind of looking at all the bits and pieces of this UI set so that I can maybe figure out how and where I want to put certain parts. For example, this is a beautiful header. You can actually see I've used copies of this kind of art in my profile below to make my various buttons. I've really liked this set for a long time. I just want to make sure that you know, I have the necessary bits and pieces in order to make it all work out. And part of the issue is that this comes in a PSD format. And as far as I know, and I'm going to check OpenGameArt real quick again just to make sure I'm correct, but I don't think there's a like laid out nice PNG version. So unfortunately, I'm stuck kind of extracting things one at a time for the use of this stuff. Yeah, I don't see any. It does not look like there's any time or place in which. Yeah, there really isn't. There's no time and place in which this is a PNG or a laid out sprite sheet or anything to use. Not the end of the world. Just means that. Just means I have to go poking through and find all the bits and pieces I want on my own. Morning, Thorana. Good morning. Alright, let's see if we can get this last piece of art out of here. As Morphix showed me yesterday, and as I proceeded to then explore in a little more detail on my own, I pretty much poked through the entirety of what script objects could do. I can't claim to completely grok them at this point, but I'm pretty frickin' close. Specifically in the realm of understanding what it's meant to do. That was one of the more interesting parts of the talk that I listened to. Unity's tutorials aren't bad, but just having them in video format makes me kind of wary of them at all times, because it's always going to take a certain amount of time to watch a video versus I can kind of quickly peruse and enjoy bits and pieces of a tutorial without getting into too much detail otherwise. Alright, I need to move it. Duh. Come on, Rob. Get your act together. So yeah, I found some cool UI. I wanted to play with that a little bit. I found some icons. I need to download those and then try a couple out, make sure that everything works. Because one of the big things of, you know, all items, it's nice to have an icon to kind of give you some detail on what something is. And so that's always going to be helpful for the player, regardless of what's going on in the game. The more iconography you can have in the right places. You know, I've seen games overdo it, so we're going to try not to do that, but I have definitely seen a fair number of games with some very good iconography that does a very good job of communicating what the game is looking for or what it is trying to tell you. There we go. Just getting all the bits and pieces put together. You'll notice I've done this in a really big sprite sheet because there are a lot of components that I want to get put into here. The more you have packed into a single sprite sheet, the more optimized certain scenes are going to be. For example, if you send a bunch of different UI elements and you send a new texture with every single one, that's really going to harm your graphics card performance. But if you send just one big texture and then say, oh, draw off this part and then this part and then this part, you actually get a much better performance. Partially because you're not sending as many little textures. It doesn't have to allocate bunches of little space in memory. And also partially because you're making less draw calls. You're literally telling it draw from the same thing repeatedly, even though you're drawing different elements. I'm just going to call it UI base for now. I'll change and mess with names of things, but for now I just kind of want to get something existent that we can work with. Let's see here. Oops, don't mind me. Busy playing City Skylines in my free time. It's awesome. There's so much information floating around in that game. It's amazing. Almost a little too much sometimes, but not quite. I never feel like overburdened by the amount of information that the game throws at me. It's always kind of that just enough space where you feel like you're about to be overwhelmed, but not quite, because you can turn things off. It's neat. So let's see. Okay, so we've got our party UI, we've got all these kind of bits and pieces, and we've got the inventory item here as well. This is kind of meant to be our base for all things. So inventory item lives at the base. Anything that can sit in our inventory is an inventory item. That's pretty much all there is to it. It needs a name, an icon, and a slot at bare minimum, right? And I'm actually tempted to do away with icon to start with, but I'll hang on to it just in case. So we've got, actually, let's just comment that out until we do need it. Sorry, I'm reading Hobbly Gobbly's comment in text, and I really don't understand it. I'm sorry, what game are we? Oh, City Skylines. Okay, I got it. I gotcha. Okay. You believe that Skylines was made in Unity? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of big games recently have been made in Unity, and it kind of blows my mind to see, like, Hearthstone was made in Unity. That's amazing. You know, that is a big game, and for Blizzard to go outside and use an engine that isn't theirs is kind of a bizarre twist. But at the same time, you know, trading card game is kind of new for someone like Blizzard, so it sounds like that they made an informed choice, and as far as I can tell, Hearthstone runs great. They made the right choice. Anyway, so inventory item lives at the base of all things, and then from there we can specialize. We say, oh, here's a weapon item, and weapon item actually needs the what is it? Create asset menu. File name, menu name, and order. Don't care. So, for example, all weapons that are going to be in hand are going to fall under weapon item, and even though it's subclasses from inventory item and it has all the information of an inventory item, we won't actually ever be creating weapon items directly. So you'll note that inventory item and weapon item are both abstract classes. Actually, sorry, weapon item should not be. The hard part here is going to be putting custom code into this. We're going to essentially need to build out a system for inserting custom code into certain items. For example, if an item is poisonous, we'll have to build a little custom code and then give the weapon item the trait poisonous. So we're going to have to come up with a system of flags in order to better control just how we want this to work. What code should and should not get triggered when we say, I swing my sword, I shoot a bow. You know, what does this mean for us as you know, kind of game developers, and then what does it mean for the player? Do the two match up and interact correctly? So we're going to start with some basic stuff, because right now we only have left hand, right hand, and things you can't hold or can't equip. So we're going to start there. I have to refine things. Again, I'm kind of working on my mental model of where things should live. Also, stuff like, I'm kind of grappling with this concept of like where these scripts should live. Because honestly, the script should be in the scripts folder, and that's fine. And then part of me kind of thinks that prefabs for items should all be in this folder, but an asset isn't really a prefab, so to speak. It's actually a different kind of asset. So I'm also kind of tempted to dump it in the data folder. The other thing I'm noticing that I'm going to take care of right now, we aren't using the JSON library yet. I don't think we'll need to, because of all this information that can live inside Unity. I actually don't think I will need a JSON library. We'll see. But the whole point of this is actually to remove things that can act like JSON libraries. Yeah, I don't think I need any of this. I need to figure out some more details of how I'm going to save and load characters, but I think if I use Unity's serialization systems, I actually shouldn't have a problem with anything. So we'll see if I can get away without a JSON library for now, because that's a lot of extra code. And when I say it's a lot, it's not actually a lot, but it's a decent amount of extra code that I'd rather not have floating around. Hey Mental and Whitebot, hello. Whiteland, have I smoothed out the turning motion yet? Yes. It's purely linear, so I need to kind of figure out if that's how I want this to work, or if I want it to be a little more snappy. But if I want it snappy to some degree, I can always just turn up the spin speed. So I can say, oh, I can do a full turn per second, and now, okay, it only takes about a quarter second to turn. That's not too bad. And doesn't let me do any weird shenanigans either when it comes to... You just can't move fast enough to really cause it to cause trouble. But yeah, so you can kind of see it works well. I can walk around. It looks nice. We should fix up some of this UI, make it a little prettier probably. But yeah, in terms of like motion and action, this is totally taken care of. We're now at a point where the party movement, aside from like ramps and things, and even then that's kind of partially taken care of. So aside from ramps and things, like we're kind of in a good place to be. We'll see how well that continues going, but I definitely like it. Yeah, it does look pretty good. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. All right, let's see. Where was I? Oh, right. Inventory stuff. So, prefabs. Yeah, I'm just going to hop into this item prefab folder, create a weapon item, and we'll just call it a sword. Standard, no fun, nothing extra kind of sword. Now, it's interesting that it has a mono behavior that actually isn't attached this time. I thought usually it attached the... items. Sword. Interesting. Oh, not sword. Derp scripts. The associated script could not be loaded. Huh. Interesting. I'll need to figure this out. The script part here is an interesting... because it looks like its base has item name and stuff, but then you can click on other scripts and they completely override everything inside of it. That is a bizarre thing. It might be because I moved it. That honestly might mess with Unity. I don't know. Let's try recreating that just to make sure I'm not doing anything too stupid. Also, I don't think there's any code inside of it at all. Like none. So that probably isn't helping my case. Also, it's probably not helping Unity that I have this inside two different files. Let's stop splitting things up so that we stop confusing Unity so completely. As it turns out, I found it's pretty easy to confuse Unity sometimes. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep all our base inventory stuff inside one file. And then we're just going to break our weapon item stuff into its own file. And hopefully that'll cause Unity a little less headache when it comes to how things should be used. Yeah, inconsistent line endings are a never-ending thing for me. Also, what were all those null reference exceptions? Don't know. This stuff just kind of happens. Can't say I fully understand it sometimes. Alright. Starter sword. Okay, now it has the weapon item attached to it. I guess it just needed to be out in its own file so that it could do its own thing. So we have a rusty sword. Its item slot will be left hand and right hand. Oh, can I not? Interesting. So even though it has the flags enumeration, it seems like I can't grab more than one at a time, which is not good. I'd like to be able to have more than one. I'd like to have more than one going on at a time. How do I get flags in the inspector? That is the question. There's an enum flag. Oh, I have to make an enum flags. And then... Oh, okay. That's not too bad. So it looks like you can create it yourself. Okay, well, I'll play with that later. I kind of do want this working now for my benefit so that I can say, oh, hey, I click on this and it does say, for instance, I want you to be able to hold a sword in either hand. That'd be kind of nice, right? I'll fight with it later. Later. No hit bonus, 1 damage. I don't know. We'll just basic information for now. It does make me wonder if I have to recreate items if I make changes to the weapon item. I'm just going to explore that real quick because that is something that would not be great if multiplier. I don't know. Okay, cool. That shows up in the item immediately. Sweet. That is exactly what I wanted. This is perfect. I use Unity because I use it at my job and because it's better than making an engine myself. Unfortunately, the engine I was using in the past is discontinued, so... but I like Unity. It's a good tool. Very powerful once you get your head wrapped around the certain bits and pieces of it. It definitely has some really interesting stuff attached to it that is amazingly powerful if done right. Let's see here. So we've got an item. We've got party members. And I can just dump it into their hands. So you're right-handed, and you're left-handed, and everyone else is right-handed, because right-handed people are the majority. I don't know why my mage is holding a sword, but we'll differentiate some details later. For now, the big thing is we just want to get items into people's hands so that we can start to see it when we work on our inventory. Okay, I don't know why I hit play. It's not like there's anything new to see quite yet. Also, I'm sorry, this is just a little too messy. I'm just going to quickly do this. There we go. That's so much nicer looking. Oh my god. Yes, please. I'd like to keep this. So party UI. So the party UI is probably going to be where some of this goes. I'm not quite entirely sure. It's either that or I could just make a new UI. Yeah, let's just make a new one. So let's see, some bits and pieces here. I want to click on brain. Come on. I want to click on a portrait, maybe, and have the portrait open up that person's inventory. That seems like a good way to handle this, at least for now. Portraits. Okay, so I have a portrait. There is some UI attached here. The party also has... the party also has the characters. I'm kind of tempted to see if there's two ways I can do this that I see in my head that I can easily run with. One is I could go into the UI, which I know exists, and I can just insert the function that I know I want to call. For example, I would say on start, I grab the UI root, we find, whoops, we get our child that is named portrait, I think, because here's our UI root. So yeah, we just find the thing named portrait. And okay, there needs to be some kind of event catcher here. Otherwise, it's not going to do us any good to try and pull more objects out of this. Question is events. There we go. An event trigger on pointer click. Sweet. This looks like this will be exactly what we need. So essentially on pointer click, we're going to say, call this function. Do this thing. Do this thing that you're meant to do. Portrait.get. I'm just curious about doing this dynamically, and then I'll do it probably just in code if it makes more sense, or not in code, in data, if it makes more sense to do it that way. Because honestly, it might. You know what? It actually will. I've done this before, and it's possible, but it's messy. So let's just do this the not so messy way. Specifically, we're going to point back at the, okay, this is the upper left character portrait. I'm actually going to go through the party members and oh, I can't rename them. There is no renaming here. There's just characters attached to the party, and that's that. Okay, that's not the end of the world. I can work with this. Let's see, if we go to the party, okay, you'll note that there's only one instance of player character in this event data list, which is not that great. But I think we can still salvage this. Specifically, first off, we need to make a function that can get called, right? So every player character will have, let's see, update UI, no. This will be our open inventory call. Yeah. And I'm curious, okay, base event data comes back. So base event, crap. Using Unity engine dot events. And I'm going to be picky about what order things are in. I get that way sometimes. Every once in a while you watch me just like completely reorganize things so that some of it is either usage based or it'll be alpha order because I'm crazy, I guess. I don't know. Unity event base. Is that really what gets called? I want to make sure that's correct. Specifically, this is the event trigger, which when you call things, what do you call? Or how do you call it specifically? You call things with a pointer event data. Really? Oh, event systems dot. Really? Sigh. Okay, it's not events. It's Unity engine dot event systems. There we go. Come on. Pointer event data. Sweet. And I'm just going to look at the inside of this real quick because my curiosity always gets the better of me when playing with a new class or structure. I'm always just kind of purely curious what in the world is going on here. It looks like, okay, that's just some interesting information. Now, I actually don't need access to the event data. Oh, wait, yes, I do. I need to know who's calling this, right? There should be a way to figure out who is currently being clicked. Eligible for click. That's a Boolean. Documentation, come here. I need some help. So here's the camera associated with the event. The game object for the last press event. So that might be what I'm hunting for here. This this last press. Let's see, is there anything more obvious here? Like who is sending it? The game object that received the on pointer down, that actually is probably going to be more closely related to what we want. Is pointer moving? Is scrolling? Current input. Selected object. The object currently considered selected by the event system. Okay, I need to poke at the event system for a moment, because there's one thing here that I need to know. So if we click on the event system itself, you can see there's actually a bunch of stats here. We don't really care a ton about a lot of this, but the big thing here is that you can see I move my mouse and it can kind of, it's detecting what my mouse is over. So when I mouse over this slider bar and attempt to click on it, you can see events changing. The energy bar and now the health bar are all being completely handled. So if I click here, you'll note, okay, so the last pointer press is still on the health bar. Did I only attach it to one? Who got it? It was the upper left portrait that got the event system? Yeah, it is. It's the upper left portrait that has the event trigger attached to it. So, if I go back to my event system, this should be able to handle a click. I'm not really seeing anything that says it's being sent off, but then again, we should also probably check. Let's see, here's our selected object, and I'm just going to send a debug on it. That's all for now. Something is so simple, just to see if this works. I don't want to spend a ton of time putting a system into place if it turns out it's not going to do its job. Oh, do I have to make it public to be accessible? I probably do. Player character. Interesting. You can see there's a lot of information in here, but I'm not actually seeing. It's on the party object, yes. It's the player character object. I wonder why this isn't showing. Blarg. Okay. I was hoping this would just kind of work. Out of curiosity, I'm just going to remove all this stuff for a moment and see if it registers now, just in case. I don't think that'll change anything, but if it does, I will laugh. Nope, there's open inventory. How does it work one way and not the other? Pointer click, okay. Maybe it wasn't, maybe I wasn't handling this correctly. Let's see. So I want an event systems base. Oop. I want a base event data is what it says it passes back. Okay, is this still valid? Or are you going to complain? Player character, open inventory. Okay, it's interesting. So we have static parameters and we have the dynamic base event data, and it got placed in this upper section. I am really curious. Okay, let's do that debug now. And click on it a few times and see what happens. Hello? Hello, hello? I'm clicking on it, I promise. So it's a raw image, it has a canvas renderer. Oh, can it be a raycast target? There we go, that's what I needed. Interesting. Interesting. So I had to set that. Okay, so I have to turn that on first off, just in case. And you can see it's actually sending across, here's position and delta. Now we know there's more information attached to this, but honestly we don't care about a lot of that. In fact, as long as I can get the selected game object back from it. So it says there's no selected game object. Also, okay, so the UI object knows it knows it's being clicked on, but it doesn't know who it's attached to. That's our kind of problem right now. Well, no, because it's, I guess my curiosity is what happens when I have, let's say, okay, my upper left, I'm going to do the same thing for the upper right. We're going to add in an event trigger, and we're going to attach a pointer click, and we're going to go and put here's the party, and then the player character has an open inventory thing. So the curiosity is what happens when I have two of these, because you'll note, well, okay, they send their nulls separately. That's nice. Let's see if this clears things up for me. So I'm going to have it send out the object who thinks it's being clicked on. Okay, so it's attached to the party somehow. That is the weirdest thing, because it's got to be getting sent to an instance. It really does. But it's attached to the party object, and because the party object, okay. So I don't know what instance of this character it is being sent to. If it's being sent to the first one, if it's being sent to, let's try this, get component, player character, and then we're going to, for the player character, character name. This will tell us which of these it's being sent to, because that's a big piece of information. If this isn't sending to the right place, okay, so that's being sent to warrior, and that's being sent to warrior. So it's all going to the first character in the list, always, every single time. And that's not what we want. We want it to go to different characters. Gosh darn, that's difficult. You can't specify which one. You can specify the game object, which makes me wonder if I should be putting sub-objects underneath, but that doesn't really make a ton of sense either. Sometimes there are simple little things that Unity makes incredibly difficult. Okay, random question. Do I need the party and player characters to be attached to the same node? Out of curiosity. I don't think I do. Yeah, I don't think I do. I think the party is a very, very separate phenomenon from the player character. I don't think I actually have any place where the two overlap. So I could split them off into their own objects just for the sake of making Unity happy. I'm trying to think if there would be any insane downsides if I did anything like that, if it would go off incorrectly. I can't think of anything, honestly. Yeah, I'm failing to come up with any reasoning why this would be a terrible thing. Yeah, I got nothing. I just want to try and make sure that I don't shoot myself in the foot. If I make this decision and say, yeah, I want to move the player characters to their own thing, and then I proceed to code around that fact, what I don't want happening is I don't want it to come back and bite me in the ass later because I decide I want to do something else that focuses on having all the player characters on the same object. And that's why I'm kind of sitting here hesitating, because honestly, a game object is something that has its own transformation. That is the key essence of what a game object is. It has its own sphere of influence or space. And if you think of the party members, they are all one party, and it's all one piece. There isn't this, like, they can't separate and go their own ways. They can't, they don't have any kind of placement within the actual, like, party. There's no offsets or anything. So I'm trying to just make sure that there isn't anything I might want to do in the future that I can come up with off the top of my head that might cause terrible things to happen. I don't know. I don't have anything. If that is the case, I definitely don't want the main camera to be underneath the party. I actually think I'd want the main camera to be the party. And then what I think I want to do is make all the party members subnodes. Let's do it. Let's do that. Okay, we're going to take the party and we're going to copy that component, and we're going to simply paste that component as a new component here. So there's our party. Ta-da! So party can go away. And I'm actually going to subnode that. And instead, I'm going to start making player characters. And I'm going to number them just for my own sanity's sake. I want to make sure that I can identify things, because player character names are not going to tell me anything by the time it gets around to knowing, okay, who's, okay, what position or what character placement was this one versus any others. So I just want to make sure that I do this right. It's sometimes, well, more often than not, it helps to pause or hesitate slightly when you're coming up with decisions like this, because you might miss something and it might end up having a bad consequence. But if you sit here, think a little longer than usual, it might not be the most interesting thing in the world, but I'm trying to make sure I do this right so I don't end up spending a bunch of streams going back and fixing stuff. Hecatonically, I'm not, it's kind of Legend of Grimrocky. I hate the real-time portion of Legend of Grimrock. That's the part that bothers me the most. The fact that they have this, like, real-time component. I think that's garbage. These are not games that should be, in my opinion, and granted, opinion warning, these should not be a real-time aspect. I think that's just not the way these games should run. And so I figure, hey, I haven't seen a good one of these lately that does not have a real-time aspect. Like Legend of Grimrock, I'll give you one thing. That is a pretty game. That is a really pretty game. But there we go. Okay, cool. Oh, I still need the fourth character. Copy and paste. Sweet. So I've got my characters. Hopefully they're all still hooked up correctly. I just want to double check the UI, make sure each of them understands where their UI is coming from. And it looks like they do. Yeah. Wizardry? Yeah, wizardry is more along the lines of what I'm aiming for here. Obviously, I'm not sure if I'm going to go so far as to say, bring your own graph paper, draw your own maps, good luck. I might actually include a minimap feature for, players' sanity's sake, but I definitely would laugh at the idea of a graph paper edition. Alright. Player characters are split into their own thing. Let's go into our portraits and fix this. So your portrait should actually be attached to player character 1, and here's our open inventory call. Now, because we're getting the information we need from, oh, actually, I'm going to leave that. Because we're getting the information we need from the actual object itself now, because we're pointing it at a different object based on what we want to do, I actually don't need that base event data right now. It would be hilarious if you first have to find the pen and paper, yes. I know Wizardry had the, I think it's a map making skill. What was it? Yeah, I think it was a map making skill. It was like mapping was a skill a character had, and you had to develop that skill in order for the character to actually be able to actually start making maps of areas. Or reading maps was the other assumption. Event trigger. So this is kind of another one of these niceties of Unity, is it allows you to come across and do a bunch of data stuff that kind of helps you avoid the whole setup of going into the code and then doing all the ties within the code and saying, oh, by the way, I need to inject a event listener here, I need to toss down code that attaches these two objects to each other via references. There's none of that. Unity goes through and says, hey, we're just going to do all the reference binding for you. Thank you. Nice to know it's going to take me 36 minutes to get to work, Google. Great timing. I'm not in the middle of anything at all. Don't worry. Okay. It just allows you to do all this data binding on its own. So when people ask, you know, why Unity? Here's another reason. Data binding is a fantastically powerful thing. So let's see. There's our warrior. There's our rogue. The cleric. And oh, I forgot to turn on the raycast target options. There we go. Warrior, rogue, cleric, mage. Sweet. We have data bindings. Now, obviously, this is just a basic like part of the engine, so it's still a step forwards, though. Specifically, when we say open inventory, I want two things. I want UI. I want a new canvas. And I'm not going to put it as a subnode to that. That would be silly. So this is going to be, I'll call this a character inventory. And we'll figure, you know, once again, names are kind of secondary. As long as it helps me understand what's going on, I don't care. So we've got the canvas. We're going to have to load into the canvas a number of things. The inventory of the character being displayed should probably go in here somewhere. And then a way to show items and prepare things. Let's see, open inventory. Yeah. Why did it not take my name? There we go. So I'm going to start by dumping a prefab into here with our character inventory, and we're going to make a reference to that prefab. Header. Come on, Rob. You can type things. Actually, yeah. I'll keep my naming scheme. I don't need to be so literal. Inventory UI is good enough. So we're going to create a new inventory UI object, and we're going to clone it from an existing prefab. Pretty simple stuff. And that should honestly do the trick. It should simply just create, whoops, I just realized all of my party members are lacking this reference. So we'll fix that. And so now when I click on one, you'll see there's a new character inventory. Now, it doesn't actually do anything yet. I say that, but yet is the key. There is going to be a little bit of stuff we can attach fairly quickly. For example, we can put a background in. We can start making it pretty, for lack of better words. Putting things in that decorate it ever so slightly. Raw image, sure. Oh my gosh. The UI is just so huge in comparison to everything else. It still continues to just mess with me. So here's our background, and we're going to make it take up, I don't know, we'll make it take up a certain amount of space, and I probably am going to want this to not be so bright white, because bright white is just, you can see it in the character portraits, it's just a little blinding, it's a little too much. I'm just pure, not pickiness, that's not the right word. Just want to do something real quick, because I haven't set this up yet. I need to set up this texture that I just dumped into place, this UI texture, as UI. Sure, but we gotta kind of sight this thing in on all of the lines, make sure that it's set up the way we want it to be. And then the other thing is we want to hook it into, I believe the correct terminology for this is a 9 patch. At least that's the term I've heard for it a lot. There we go. And what essentially this does is that it allows us to break up a certain texture into a bunch of pieces that can be easily manipulated, such that, say for instance, we want to stretch the bottom even further, or if we want to make this taller, it allows you to only stretch certain elements because you end up drawing the entire texture in 9 different pieces, and so the corners will stay a good resolution. You can stretch the sides vertically without any distortion, and then you can kind of place this centerpiece here and not have too much trouble with it. Let's see here. This is a progress bar background. Just for the sake of having it done, I'm actually going to quickly clear through the rest of these as well, because there are a couple of these, and when I want to use them, I won't have to dive in and do this again. Is that... Can I just... No. No, I cannot. Oh, I see what's going on. Okay, yeah, they are slightly different. I'm just gonna... Oh, making that uniform actually does not work the way I was hoping it might. Yep, but that bottom row of pixels looks like a valid row, so we'll just hand fix that. Good enough. Cool. And I'm just going to apply that. And now what we can do is this random image that I just threw into place, we can actually attach. And you can see that even though the object was not actually this large, it now scales pretty frickin' well. It scales very proportionately with the size. This is not a raycast target, but I do wish to put... I guess I want it the other way around, don't I? We want the portrait to go on top of this thing. And I am realizing that my position on it is bad, and that... Oh, no. And that this is probably... Yeah, it's going to move the base, of course. Of course, of course. And this is 110 by 120, so let's just quickly... Um, 40? I don't think I'm going to be able to make this fit too snugly, but we can do our best. That's close. I mean, eventually we're going to have alpha, and this thing is going to actually look nice, so I'm not too worried about it for now. Portrait, let's just shift this up like a couple, even a pixel. There we go, nice and centered. And see, now our portrait looks all kinds of nice. It actually doesn't look like I just slapped an image onto the screen and said I was done. Minus 31 and 15, okay. Yeah, I definitely have to change some of my coordinates now, but that's not the end of the world. There we go. That should be good. I'll maybe fix the rest up another time. I've only got about, well, you know, I've only got about 10 minutes. I will take questions. What we're probably going to end up doing next time is we'll go through and actually populate the inventory screen with all the stuff from people's inventory. We'll also probably start putting down slots for here's your head, here's your arm slot, here's your hands, so that you can drag items from inventory to the actual slot it needs to go to, so that we can equip things and unequip things easily in a nice visual user interface. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, let me know. I think I'm just going to toss a couple more portraits up and then call it a day, honestly. Hi, dog. Dog has come to join me. All right. Let's see here. Party UI is just this like, or the character, or sorry, the character inventory is just a blob right now. We'll clean this one up too. Actually, since I can, why don't we just, you shouldn't be a raw image. You should actually be, you should just be a straight actual image. Mental asks a good question. I saw you using abstract classes. I've been programming for a while now, but never used or heard of them too much. When do you use them? So the primary point of an abstract class is when you need a set of objects to follow not only follow a certain interface, right? If that was all that we wanted it to do, we'd just use an interface. But what we actually also want from it is we want the ability to also have common variables live inside of this object. Because if you'll remember, an interface can only have functions inside of it. What an abstract class gives us is the ability to do a couple of things. One, it lets us have function definitions that people can override. So say I want my base weapons to all have a discard function for when you throw it out of your inventory. That is something that you can actually implement the details of inside that abstract class, so that what? Oh, you can implement the details inside the abstract class and then proceed to use that function from any of its ancestors. Granted, you have to use the protected keyword instead of the private keyword, but it still gets the point across. You can use these functions in any of the ancestors of it. It also lets you have variables that you can spread across and kind of commonly own between it and its ancestors as well. It's kind of a good, it's kind of like an interface plus. The thing to keep in mind, at least in C#, is that obviously you want to ensure that your inheritance structure isn't too crazy, since C# is single inheritance, but it's still not all that bad to there we go. It's still not all that bad to actually make use of. Good. Okay, things are looking good. Alright, let's, I'm just gonna copy, Part of me wants to just like copy paste this component a bunch of times to avoid the whole having to handle this in a bunch of different times and places, but I think I honestly should do this by hand a bunch of times just to avoid any misnomers in my portrait code. I can do things, of course, like copy and paste names, and that's not too bad. And I'll probably end up stealing size traits for all of these. 134 by 144. Minus 31 and 50. Okay. Let's see, what was the dimensions on this? 40 and 25. Okay. See, and now our left side looks all pretty, and also if we hit apply here, we can actually toss this inventory background out. And when I click on it, hey look, it brings up somebody's inventory. I put quotations around that because obviously it's not a functional inventory, but it's an inventory object. It's a piece of UI that will do something eventually. So guys, I'm about to sign off. I have a couple minutes before I gotta take off for work, but if you have any questions, let me know. Also, if you like what you see, if you're interested in first-person dungeon crawl game development, kind of watching the bits and pieces come together for a game similar but not the same as Legend of Grimrock and stuff like that, be sure to hit the follow button below. You'll see when I come online, all that good stuff. You can join me each time. If you miss any, I'm going to start dumping these onto my YouTube channel eventually. And so you can kind of watch from there if you can't be up at, 8 in the morning Pacific Standard Time every Tuesday through Friday. I'll probably hop online at some point this weekend. Unfortunately, it's hard to nail down that time as things kind of tend to come up that complicate my weekend. So yeah, thanks guys for joining me. I'm going to poke at this a little bit more. Am I putting these on YouTube? I will be. I'm just not quite at that point yet. I like to have more than a couple videos before I start just mass dumping them online. I'm also going to try not using my hand recorded version this time. I'm going to actually try dumping the version that I get from Twitch to see if that makes my life any easier at all. That may or may not actually end up helping me in the end, but we'll see. I think that I said it was 134. Is that what the size of this thing was? 134 by 144. Okay, 140. Alright. And portrait, what are you doing? You're not there at all. I liked the little one offset. Where's the upper left character? You should not be at 0, 0. You should be at 0, 1. Just a little centering. That little 1 pixel push can be enough sometimes to keep users from going too crazy when they look at it and go, but it's off by a little. Like, how am I supposed to see things? It's not actually that bad. But it can be just off enough to drive some people crazy. So I try to avoid driving people crazy when I can. Because being somewhat crazy already, I understand the pain of it all. Alright, last one. Last one indeed. 40? I think I had it at 30 and 25? What were you at? 30 and 25. Sweet. I'm doing it right. Background. There we go. And then we attach the portrait to the portrait background 0, 1. And there we go. Look at how pretty that is. Where did I get the base sprite? I got the base sprite from an open game art link, which I'll toss in chat. But yeah, open source stuff is awesome. You'll see me using a ton of open source art up until the moment I either decide to make stuff myself, or up until the moment when I start paying an artist to do this stuff for me. Because my art skills are but someone else's art skills, oh, I'm sure I could put great use to that. So yeah, thanks guys again for joining me. I do have to run off for work. Gotta go get gas this morning. Otherwise, kind of, you know, the coworker who carpools with me probably won't be too happy when the car breaks down. So, thanks again for joining me, guys, and I will hopefully catch you next time. At least, at bare worst minimum, I will be back for my Tuesday through Friday 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, but I'll probably do something this weekend. I just can't give you guys a time because I'm bad at timing things on the weekend. I like to sleep in. I like my sleep. Mostly. Alright guys.